All right. Hello, everyone. We are about to get going here. Looks like someone just said trying to get my mic to work. This is a webinar type of format, which means that no one's microphones actually will work. If you have any questions, please type them into the question area. It says like Q&A. And I'm going, just you can type in your questions at any time. I'm going to run through about 5 minutes of overview and then get into some examples and then show you the demo. And we actually have a little surprise. We have one-click donations fully functional now as well. So here we go. So Blackthorn Donations is our application that we built as a integration between Blackthorn Payments and the Salesforce Mpsp. And we built this for two primary purposes. One is that we needed a way to automate all of the functions of the Mpsp between payments, so it works with opportunities, recurring donations, households, the payments object, automatically capturing transactions, and so forth. And the second is to be able to have donation forms that you don't need any code to be able to manage. So when you work with our application, there's 4 options for hosting the form on your site. It can be a hosted page, which means that the page is hosted by us, or you can take the little snippet of the form and embed that in your page as a pop-up or as an embedded form. Our one-click donations is the 4th variant that I'll be able to show you today. And we also support custom questions and recurring donations, as well as campaigns. Automated GAU allocation is in our roadmap. Our stack of Blackthorn donations is comprised of Blackthorn payments and Blackthorn donations. So payments allows you to process payments through Stripe as the gateway. It's the only gateway that we support, and it's not in our roadmap to support any other gateways. We support today cards and ACH. Early next year, we're looking to support other types of payment formats, such as Apple Pay on the web, Bitcoin, and a number of European formats, such as there's a lot of direct debit networks in Europe, like SEPA, GiroPay, Ideal. So those are in the roadmap for Q1 next year. You can process in any currency, and we also have automated reattempt logic within Salesforce. A big difference between us and other vendors, all of our payment processing originates from Salesforce, not through the gateway and then syncing back to Salesforce. This is done in a PCI compliant fashion, but it also means that you can process payments from within Salesforce without having to go anywhere else using native UI or our terminal, which I can show you today as well. So just a quick note, this demo will be done in Lightning, but everything works just the same in Classic. I usually use Classic, but I'm getting more used to Lightning. It does work in both. So our one-click donations, the concept here is that most people have bought something from Amazon. The experience is really nice. You just open your phone or your computer, click what you want, and click checkout. You don't have to re-enter your name, your address, your payment method. There's no reason. Something very unique we're able to do is that you already have all of your donors' information. Why do you want to ask for it again? In case they're net new, right? But you might not have their payment methods, so maybe you want to pre-fill everything else you have. Or maybe you have everything and you want to just ask for what it is that you're asking for a certain cause. This is a very powerful feature because it really helps with conversion. And coming next week, we even have the ability that you can ask for dynamic amounts. So if you have a donor that usually gives you $1,000, you don't want to ask them for $20. Or if you have someone that usually donates $20, if you ask them for $1,000, they'd probably be a bit annoyed. So we have a way that you can actually dynamically ask them for the amount that you want to ask them for. And I'll be able to show you that today as well, somewhat. But that's available next week too. Also, within Salesforce, common use cases that you want to take payments by phone. A big one here is that you might have volunteers working at your nonprofit. Maybe there's like a phone drive and there's 5, 10, 20 people. You don't want to train them all how to use Salesforce. You only have to show them how to use our terminal. From the terminal, we have specific actions tied to the Mpsp. So you can, from the account or from the contact, you can do everything you need to do. You can create a new one-time donation or a new recurring donation. You can filter on their existing payment method or create a new payment method. You can set up installments. You can do the transaction description. You can relate it to a campaign. There's so much you can do, and you don't even have to teach your team how to do anything other than live out of the terminal. Like, they literally don't know how to need to know how to use Salesforce. They can just live in the terminal. Another use case we have now, payment methods don't always work. They fail for a variety of reasons. There's a feature in our application that allows the card to be automatically updated if it's expired, lost, or stolen, and a major carrier has updated that card. The feature is called Stripe's Account Auto Updater. It's a free feature. All you have to do is enable webhooks in our application. It's part of our setup guide. And what happens is that MasterCard, Visa, Amex, and some other carriers, they automatically send a new, the card information to Stripe, who then re-tokenizes it and sends the new token into Salesforce. So your payment methods for your donors will automatically be updated if they're expired, lost, or stolen. There's another scenario where maybe it's a debit card and there's insufficient funds. Maybe they recently processed a big payment and it locked them out and they don't have credit. Whatever it is, we have automatic reattempt logic built into the application. We automatically reattempt each transaction once per day. And on the transaction, we capture the reattempt number. One of the things that people do is they add our feature here called PayLink. This is a paid add-on to Blackthorn Payments. It's not required. Not everybody uses it, but it is a nice feature if you want to automate things. If the payment fails, you can automatically send an email to the donor and say, hey, we noticed that your payment method didn't go through. If you'd like to change your payment method, click here. And it takes them to like a light payment request page where you can change the background, put in your logo, and they can click the button to be able to pay for that given transaction, which then updates that transaction and all of their future payments they're going to make. So it's a way that you can fully automate your whole payment system. So something else here. So just to talk about the fees, and then we'll go into the rest of the demo side. It's very simple fee structure. For the US, the Stripe fee is 2.2% plus 30 cents, which is for anyone that's a 501c3. If you're not a 501c3 in the US, it's 2.9%. If you're in Europe or anywhere other than the US, the rates are different. Especially in Europe, they tend to be a lot lower. And our fee is 1.25% plus 20 cents. And this is if you do up to 80K of volume per month. If you have significant volume, we have automatic discounting built into the application. So if anyone is doing more than 80K a month of transactions in your donation forms, feel free to contact us after the call. We're happy to go into more about how our discounting function works. Someone asked about, does this work in the EU as well? This has nothing to do with the EU or anywhere. We support 130 plus currencies, basically all the ones that Stripe supports. So you could use this like literally anywhere, as long as you enter a currency that Stripe supports. And we have all of them predefined in our system. And the auto updater for the cards works upon any carrier. It's not US specific. So if your carrier is a carrier that Stripe supports, it's supported by them. Again, this is a feature that it's not really our feature. This is a Stripe feature. So if Stripe supports it and they support it by webhooks, then we'll support it. So what I want to show you here, I have a lot of tabs queued up just to show you some examples of what our form can look like out in the wild. This is SPCAI. They've been running, they were actually our inaugural customer. We did a conference with them a few weeks ago in Chicago to talk about their success they've had with our application. From their main page, it takes you to this donate page, and they're using our button click pop-up. So you'll see that when they click the button, this only has our form. This doesn't have some of the other features. This is using some customizations on here where it's called our stacked layout. You'll notice that monthly is on top of one time. We also have something called the toggle layout, which I'll show you next here. So here's another form. This is an embedded form where they're using our toggle layout on the form, and you can see they support monthly and one-time. Big feature request we've been getting is to support other payment frequencies. This is something we're looking to support hopefully by the end of this month, probably in November. A lot of people want to use our donation form to manage memberships. So we're going to be adding annual and quarterly to our form, so that you'll be able to support typical membership types of payments. Some other sample forms here. So here's a radio station that has our form embedded as well. And here's a private school that has our embedded form here also. You'll notice that the embedded form is the popular varietal of how our application gets used. If you go to our website, we also have our embedded form. Now this embedded form, this is actually a live usable form that you can test out. We have 2 custom fields running on the form. You'll notice that we picked one of our background colors and matched the hex code to be able to put that into the form. This is fully mobile responsive, so you could see how that works right within the form. And so that means you'll be able to pull it up on your phone. Text to give is a feature that we're looking to add in Q1. If you do have a native Salesforce SMS application, you can use that today. Or if you use our new one-click donation feature, or if you have an external texting feature, all you have to do is text the URL to someone, and it will pull up the form fully responsive. Actually, our website is designed to hide it. But if we actually go and look at, for instance, this form here, you'll see that it will be responsive if you go to pull that form up on your phone. So let me go back to our browser size here and go into some of the demo stuff. So within Salesforce, the way our app works is that you install Blackthorn payments and install Blackthorn donations. From our setup guide, we have a setup page, and the full setup from scratch takes about 20 minutes. From Salesforce, then, you create your donation form. Within the donation form, you have the option to set a lot of controls that you have full control over. We have little help text bubbles next to every field. So when you go to create the form, you set whatever it is that you want to set to display for your donor. If you want to take different types of frequencies, if you want our toggle or stack layout, if you want the default to be changed, how you want the amounts to be displayed, if you want a pre-selected amount, if you want it in different order. For the second step, we have some common fields: phone address, employer, occupation. You can hide, require, make them optional. And I'll show you how custom questions work in a moment. For the checkout, you can ask to cover the processing fee. You can put in the processing fee as a percentage amount or both. You can force a CAPTCHA, which is the little checkbox to help with blocking out spam, require the CVV. You can set in the form color. You can control what happens after the submission if you want to redirect or just show a message. After the submission happens, this is a big question we get for people that are deeper into the weeds of the Mpsp. What is the automation? So if you're interested in the very granular automation, from our docs page, we have our form submission logic. This is everything that happens after the submission. From a very high level, there's 2 things that happen. Instantly, we create, tokenize, apply the payment method, and process the first transaction. On a scheduled process, we then do the rest of the automation. And the rest of the automation involves trying to do a match on the email address of the existing contact. If we make a match, we have the option to update the contacts fields. Otherwise, we can create a new contact, which auto-creates a new household. If it's a monthly donation, we then auto-create the recurring donation record with a series of opportunities. If it's one time, we only create the one opportunity. And then their payment method is applied to all of the transactions, and they're all set to auto-capture. So basically, after you set up our donation form, you don't need to do anything. We automatically handle all of the automation. For receipts, the receipts can be sent either directly from Stripe, or they can be sent out of Salesforce from a workflow rule that you can enable. We include that workflow rule. All you have to do is click enable, oh no, actually it's activate on the workflow rule, and that will automatically turn it on. And then you have full control over the email template if you want to be able to change it from there. Then you have further control over things like if you want open-ended status, like a never-ending donation versus a fixed amount. If you want to have a certain opportunity stage, if you want to control the record type on the opportunity and contact, and so forth. Now, the other ways to use our form besides the embedded and the pop-up button is our hosted form. So every time you create a form, we auto-create a URL for the hosted page. If you click that URL, this brings you to our hosted page. This is the exact same form as our website. You'll see it's the same thing in that little box as it is here. Instead, we just show that form inside of our main hosted page where you can control the layout on this a bit. You can put a banner, or you can put a title and a subtitle, or both. You could have a content block. You can put embedded images into the content block with a footer. So you get some control over that. And you get to control how all that works from the given fields here in this section. Now below for the hosted page content, again, this is other places you can put more of that data. Now when you create your form, we auto-create the code. So all you have to do is just copy this code and paste it into your site. We have some basic docs on all of the popular CMSs. So we have WordPress, Squarespace, and Weebly. Wix, unfortunately, is pretty locked down, and we can't do much with that. And then also, if you have just raw HTML, CSS, we have some basic info about how to manage that as well. But basically, all you do is copy paste it into your site. If you then want to have any custom questions, you can just create a custom question by clicking New. You can say what the question is. You can say the type, checkbox, pick list. If it's pick list, for instance, you can set your values. So you just set them by semicolon. And then you can set your default. And if it's checkbox, you can say if it's checked or unchecked. And then you say, does it go on the first step or the second step? Set which object it maps to. And if you want to map to other objects, there's other ways to do that using Process Builder. But you can set your object, and then you just set the API name of the field. And then once the submission happens, we automatically map the answer from that question to the object and field where you set that question. For the form amounts, this is where you create the amounts. When you make the amount, you can put a little description next to it, such as, this donation amount helps to fund XYZ initiative to this frequency or something. You can say, if it's both monthly or one time. We're adding functionality to this, so we have the quarterly and annually. And then you also set the amount that you want to support there as well. Other questions that I'll just circle back on that always come up. Yes, we support campaigns. The submission will automatically add a campaign member to that given donation submission. And to do GAU allocation and partial soft credits, those are in the roadmap for next year. Now, to show you some pretty juicy things that we're pretty excited about is our one-click donation. So one-click donation works with a new feature that we just built into for our Blackthorn payments, which is called the default payment source. So, or default payment method. And the way that one-click works is that there's two ways. One is that you can set a donation form as your default. That default will auto-create a URL on the contact. And all you have to do is use this contact and send it out in an email blast tied to the email address. So that will automatically have their default payment method pre-plugged in, the gateway. We support multiple gateways too. So if you have, it's only Stripe, but if you have 20 Stripe accounts, you can just tie your form to your Stripe account. So in your one-click, if I click this button, it's going to pull up me. It pulls up the payment method, and if I have my address details, it'll have it in there. And before I click on that, the way that this is set, oops, this is when I was pre-queuing this up in Classic. No offense to all the UI designers, but I'm still kind of stuck on Classic. So here's our donations sample form, and you'll see that we, excuse me, we have our, where are we down here? This is our default one-click, which makes it show up on the contact, and we also have our pre-selected amount, which is actually set for $100. And if we click on this link, which is basically mocking it as if we emailed it to the customer, then you'll see we have our amount, which is pre-filled, and then they can change it if they like, but we pre-fill the 100. We pre-fill the frequency, we pre-fill the payment method, and if there's no zip code that's been previously entered, if you didn't enforce that on the initial collection, then if there's a CVV, if there's the CAPTCHA, they can click it, and then they just do a donate. We recommend enforcing the zip code on your submissions because it adds like a small layer of accidental donations if you just have to resubmit the zip code on the billing payment method. And that's actually pulled off of, let's see if we can enforce that here. So this is pulled off of the contacts account. So if you did have the account address, actually it's not plugged in here at all. The reason that wasn't plugged in here is that if we had this on the payment method, that would then enforce all those details for the payment method address. Let's go back into our account. We'll go back into our payment method. This should automatically enforce it, and this is a brand new feature, so maybe it won't work here on our call, but hopefully it does. We'll be a little risky and see if this works. So let's try our form again, and we'll re-render this. See if it asks for our billing zip code. All right, Eureka. So we have to reconfirm our billing zip code, and I'll try a zip code that was not ours and do a donate. You'll see that it's bad, and I think I had this one, 101, and it's good. So this then processes the donation for that payment method. Now we have, oh, here's another question. Is this webinar recorded? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I'll be emailing the webinar recording to everyone that was invited here before, so you'll have a URL. I'll put it up on YouTube, so you'll have a YouTube link. So now, this is my favorite, oh, you're welcome. This is my favorite feature in our docs. If anyone's curious how to get here, by the way, from our homepage, let me go to our homepage. We have our products, then we have documentation. It takes you into our setup docs, and then you could go to our one-click donations. So from here, all the way at the bottom, after you set up the one-click donation fields, we show you how to set up the one-click donation from URL parameters. So this is where it starts to get interesting. You now don't have to have a default form, and you can map this to whatever you want. So you plug in your org ID, you plug in your form ID, you plug in your contact ID. Now this has the amount ID. You can do the amount ID, or we actually just released this 30 minutes ago. You can plug in an actual amount. This means you can do your average gift amount by using that feature. So I'm going to just take this URL as an example and plug it in, and you'll see how we render this data. It's the form amount is 110. The URL is the same org ID I'm pulling from. The form is from the same source form. If I go to the contact, I can then plug in this contact ID, and here's our test person that was plugged in. Now, to show you how the average or dynamic gift amount works, in Salesforce on the contact, if you're running the Mpsp, you all actually already have this feature already. If you have any opportunities related to the contact, this average gift amount will automatically be populated. So the way you would do this is that if you had like 20 opportunities that were all for variable amounts, but the average was like 1,000, what you would do is that when you use your mass email application, either from a Salesforce mass email template you would build, or from like a MailChimp or Pardot or Marketing Cloud, on the end of the URL that is, now I just have too many windows open here. Let's go back to our, actually I can show you from here. On the end of the URL that was formed here, you would include the merge field for this contact as part of the URL parameter to build your URL to send out in your email blast. So you would use the URL for the average gift amount. Now I'm just going to mock that here. Oops, don't put in commas. That will not be good. So let's say it was 7,000. You then have 7,000 populated into your one-click. The reason this is really nice is that if there's a massive campaign you're looking to do, usually one-clicks aren't necessarily for monthly. They're usually for like a big drive for a specific need. So you might do like one time as the frequency and specify an amount you're trying to ask for from the donor's average gift amount, and then you can process that submission. Okay, that is a lot of talking for me. Does anyone have any questions that you'd like me to address on this call? Any questions from anybody? Maybe, maybe not. How do you handle end-of-year statements? Well, in terms of specifically managing the generation of an end-of-year statement, we don't have anything built around that. However, all of our data is entirely native to Salesforce, and it's also mirrored in your gateway. So if you want to generate the data out of Salesforce, you have your contact, you have your household, you have their either pledged or completed amounts from the opportunity, and you also have your core transaction amounts. So you could filter on what your total donation amounts were per contact or per donation form or per campaign or per Stripe account. So you'll likely want to have a report on the total donations processed for a given Stripe account. And you can also show refunds and partial refunds from that report as well. And that's functionality built into our application as well. So you can get the raw data out of Salesforce in CSV format just from standard reports. So I don't know if that exactly handles your question, but I think that's a way to get you the data that you would need for those statements. Good question. Any other questions? No? Just to show you what it looks like for a monthly donation, we auto-create a standard Mpsp recurring donation record with a series of opportunities. It's 12 by default. And to auto-create the transactions, we mirror the payment object. So every time you have an opportunity, you have a payment, and then you have a Blackthorn payments transaction. The transaction itself is how we run the automated payment logic. So the transaction is set to auto capture. That means this will automatically process from Salesforce for the given amount related to the payment method, the contact, the account, and so forth. Another question, are there any reports that you create for admins to use? Another good question. So the answer is, I hope that I have them in this org, but they are in the most recent package. So let's take a look at our reports and see if we have them in here. They should be in a folder. Let's see our, yes, Blackthorn donation reports. So we have a lot. So here's all of our template reports that we include. You'll notice there's quite a few of them. And these include a lot of typical scenarios that we've been asked. So we recommend that you look at the report closest to what you're trying to get to understand how the filter criteria can work. And you can use those reports to then go from there. And we also have a dashboard that's part of these reports that I don't think is in this org. So you can just surface that dashboard. Another question is, can we use this product for events, school, dinner registrations as well? So that is a great question. While you can, if you wait until November, we have a new application we're releasing called Blackthorn Events. That's going to be a native Salesforce application to set up your event. And the event will render in the same way that our donation renders today. So here's a secret coming soon preview to what that's going to look like. You create all of your records in Salesforce for the event, the session, the speakers, the sponsors, and you put in your images. And again, fully mobile responsive to a series of device sizes. You'll see how it keeps resizing as I resize this as if it's on different browser sizes. And then you'll see that we support a lot of this data within Salesforce. And this is actually running out of the same source org. So let me go and actually pull that up, because this is a nice question that we can show you how some of these things work. So here's our test event. And you'll see here's our description with all of our rich text in the way that we're formatting it within here as rich text. And also within Salesforce, you then host all of your other data. So you have a map, the mission of the organizer. You have your address with directions. You can have your agenda. So you list all of your sessions by date, by time, by location. You can put in optional pictures with descriptions. You have your different dates here. You have your speakers. Looks like this is a lot of sample data we have. You can click on the name and you can see the image, what sessions they're speaking at. If you want to show them speaking at multiple events, if you have sponsors for that event with icons and descriptions, the venue or venues where that's going to be held, you might use this to show like hotels. If you have an FAQ for that event where you have like the different categories and you want to expand and collapse those, as well as being able to register. We have multi-ticket registration as well as promo codes that you can enter and multi-ticket for your attendees. So you can register multi-attendee at once. This will also be supporting custom questions during the checkout, which will then in Salesforce create the contact, create the attendee, add them to the event. You can tie it to a campaign if you want. It'll have the payment checkout logic using our Blackthorn Payments API and so forth. So this is coming in November. New question. When was the events functionality coming? We currently use Eventbrite for this stuff. If we can get rid of them and centralize everything directly into Salesforce, that would be great. We feel the same way, so glad you feel that way. That will be coming November. Is it required that we use the Mpsp to leverage donations? For donations, yes. For events, no. The reason it has to be used with the Mpsp for donations is that everything is tied to the logic in donation. So we're not actually using our own generation logic. We're leveraging the Mpsp generation logic for the recurring donation. If you want to have a totally custom form that has nothing to do with this and you just want to take a form, our Blackthorn Payments does have a free API if you are a dev-heavy organization. So you can leverage our API. We do have a REST API, so we support related object inserts and updates. So you could insert the payment method transaction as well as other objects like opportunity, account, contact, etc. This would be building your own logic. There's no Mpsp correlation to this. It would not use our form builder. You would use a custom form, but this is how you could use our payments application to do that. Not sure if that's way more into the weeds than what you bargained for, but that's an approach that you could use. Any more questions from anyone? No? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to send out an email about how to support all of this. If anyone does have any questions, you can email support plus donations at blackthorn.io, and that will create a support ticket with us to be able to get back to you. So I hope this was helpful, and thanks a lot.